People aren't ignoring your brand. Most businesses assume that when people don't respond to their content, the audience simply isn't interested. But in reality, the problem is rarely rejection. The problem is that the brand never truly captured attention in the first place. They simply don't notice it. In a digital environment where thousands of messages compete every minute, most brands pass by without being consciously registered. The audience scrolls past them almost automatically. Without distinct signals, the brain doesn't stop long enough to process what it sees. Attention is limited. Human attention is one of the most valuable and scarce resources in modern marketing. Every day, people are exposed to thousands of brands, advertisements, and messages. Because of this overload, the brain must constantly decide what deserves attention and what can be ignored. The brain filters everything. To protect itself from information overload, the brain filters out the majority of what it sees. Only signals that appear important, unusual, or emotionally relevant manage to pass through that filter. Everything else fades into the background. Most brands look the same. One of the biggest problems in modern branding is visual and conceptual similarity. Many companies use the same design trends, the same messaging patterns, and the same positioning strategies. When everything looks alike, nothing stands out. And sameness kills attention. The brain is naturally drawn to contrast and novelty. If a brand looks similar to everything else in the environment, the brain has no reason to focus on it. What feels ordinary is quickly ignored. Difference creates attention. Distinct brands create a visual or conceptual interruption in the environment. That interruption forces the brain to pause and evaluate what it is seeing. In marketing, attention almost always begins with difference. Positioning creates clarity. Once attention is captured, the next step is understanding. Clear positioning tells the audience what the brand stands for and why it exists. Without clarity, attention quickly disappears again. Clarity creates recognition. When a brand communicates its identity consistently and clearly, the brain begins to recognize it more easily. Recognition is one of the most powerful psychological shortcuts in decision-making. The easier a brand is to recognize, the more mentally available it becomes. Recognition captures attention. Each time the audience encounters a recognizable signal, the brain reacts faster. Familiar shapes, colors, and messages stand out immediately. Over time, recognition strengthens attention instead of competing with it. Attention creates curiosity. When something captures attention, the brain naturally begins asking questions. What is this brand? Why does it feel different? Curiosity is the emotional bridge that moves people from passive observation to active interest. Curiosity creates interest. Interest develops when curiosity finds meaningful signals. If the brand communicates value clearly, the audience begins to engage with it more intentionally. At this stage, the brand moves from being noticed to being explored. Interest leads to exploration. Exploration occurs when potential customers start interacting with the brand. They may read more content, visit the website, or watch additional videos. Each interaction strengthens familiarity with the brand. Exploration builds familiarity. The more often people encounter a brand, the easier it becomes for the brain to process it. Familiarity reduces uncertainty and makes the brand feel safer. This is one of the most powerful psychological effects in marketing. Familiarity reduces resistance. When something feels familiar, the brain does not treat it as a potential threat. Instead, it processes it quickly and comfortably. Reduced resistance allows the brand to move closer to trust. Resistance blocks decisions. When a brand feels unfamiliar or unclear, the brain becomes cautious. Customers hesitate because uncertainty creates psychological friction. That friction slows down decision-making. Trust removes resistance. Trust works as a psychological shortcut that simplifies complex choices. When people trust a brand, they stop evaluating every detail. Instead, they rely on the belief that the brand will deliver what it promises. Trust creates confidence. Confidence allows customers to move forward without fear of making the wrong decision. It reassures them that choosing the brand is a safe and rational step. Confidence is what turns attention into real action. Confidence creates action. At the moment when confidence is strong enough, the customer finally decides to act. This may mean making a purchase, signing up, or recommending the brand to someone else. Action is where marketing begins to produce measurable results. Action creates customers. When people act on their decisions, they move from being passive observers to active participants. Customers are not just buyers, they are proof that the brand has created trust and clarity. Every customer becomes a signal of credibility. Customers create momentum. As more people interact with the brand, momentum begins to build. Social proof starts forming naturally as others observe the brand being chosen. Momentum strengthens the brand's presence in the market. Momentum builds reputation. Over time, repeated positive interactions shape how the market perceives the brand. Reputation forms when people begin associating the brand with reliability and value. Reputation turns short-term attention into long-term influence. Reputation builds authority. Authority emerges when a brand consistently demonstrates expertise and consistency. When authority is established, the audience begins to trust the brand's perspective. Authority dramatically increases the impact of every message. Authority builds influence. Influence is the ability to shape how people think, feel, and decide. Brands with strong authority guide conversations within their industry. Their ideas travel further and spread faster. Influence builds powerful brands. A powerful brand is not simply recognized, it shapes perception. People begin to associate the brand with leadership and reliability. Influence transforms the brand into a reference point within the market. Powerful brands dominate attention. Once influence grows strong enough, the brand becomes one of the first names people think about. Instead of fighting for attention, the brand naturally receives it. This is when marketing becomes significantly easier. And attention drives growth. Attention fuels every stage of business growth. Without attention, even the best products remain invisible. With attention, opportunities begin to multiply. Invisible brands never grow. Many businesses struggle not because their product lacks value, but because their brand lacks visibility. When a brand cannot capture attention, it cannot create recognition or trust. Growth becomes extremely difficult. Visible brands shape markets. Brands that capture attention consistently begin to influence entire industries. They shape expectations, conversations, and trends. Visibility gives them the power to lead. Attention is the first step to influence. Every successful brand journey begins with attention. Without attention, nothing else in marketing can happen. But when attention is earned and managed correctly, it becomes the foundation of influence. If you want to understand the psychology behind branding, marketing, and why certain brands dominate attention while others remain invisible, follow this channel for more insights. Subscribe if you want to build brands that people actually notice, remember, and trust. Sivra, make it click, make it run.